Oh YouTube, Jester's Gaming here, and we're playing Fallout 4. I've done a little bit. We're pretty much in the military base, the satellite base. Gonna get that necklace for Abernathy. SSO will be upgrading equipment in the coming months, but this does not mean maintenance duties cease. Continue normal work schedules. The lower storage room requires fermentation for pests.
If the signal isn't activated,
specifically cockroaches, termination commences at 0900.
While they're establishing a
25th October 77. All personnel are required to evacuate substation level 4 the duration of the procedure. Due to the high volume of signaling reception traffic, intel officers will be on site daily until further notice and will require access to intel.
Would come shortly after that. Perhaps there would be a couple of rebellions, but over time, the railroad's cause would get diluted, and new recruits would be hard to come by. After all, the railroad's original purpose of saving or helping synths would be lost. After that, it's kind of hard to say what happens next for the railroad. Perhaps the remaining railroad members would try to travel to Far Harbor, and I think between both the Brotherhood and the Minutemen are probably not going to try and hunt down every single synth like the Brotherhood would. Speaking of the Brotherhood, there's a possibility that the Brotherhood will still be around after the railroad's demise. So it's unclear whether the Brotherhood would want to try to go to the Minutemen at this point, especially since the Minutemen have access to artillery pieces that can put the Bridlin out of commission, and they just completed the Institute without the need for Liberty Prime or Power Armor. So I suppose if the Brotherhood is feeling cocky and they decide to fight the Minutemen, and with
holy crap.
Destroyed, the Minutemen would come out on top as the uncontested power of the Commonwealth. But to sum everything up, my thinking is that if the Institute defeats the railroad will eventually reform and try to attack the Institute again. As for the other factions, it's really contingent on whether the evacuation order is issued, so if the evacuation order doesn't happen, I think the railroad is going to be done. Either way, it's really fun to speculate what would happen to the Commonwealth if the railroad. But alright guys, I think that's going to wrap up this particular video. If you like this video, feel free to leave a like, click the bell to join the notification squad, and as always, take care, and I'll see you all next time.
Getting tired yet?
Surely you meant to leave that rubbish where you found it.
Disappearing act, huh?
Satellite dish offline.
No sign of him now.
Impressive. Well, it's no General Atomics back in the day, but still, not too shabby.
Oh, it's on! Ah!
Would not believe how this place sets off my cleaning sense.
Got it.
Someone went through a...
That's it.
Fortify this place. Years ago, I never would have thought this level of dust possible.
Nice.
Brother. Sad this level of security is necessary these days. So long, locked doors.
Need something?
Seems to be growing well.
You know what I call a good day? One that ends without an empty stomach.
Just wanted to trade a few things.
Sure.
What's up? We need. Okay.
or not. From a theory perspective, it's pretty interesting that the Lone Wanderer and Deacon could be the same person. However, I also think there's a lot of evidence that provides information that would indicate that both individuals are in fact not the same person. In this video, I'll go over some of the evidence that suggests that they could be the same person, and also go over some evidence that suggests that they aren't. I will then give you my opinion on the matter, as well as talk about how Deacon could still end up being the Lone Wanderer, though in a way that you might not expect. But I guess without further ado, let's go ahead and start. Now, there are a few pieces of evidence that are cited to prove that the Lone Wanderer and Deacon might be the exact same person. A significant portion of this evidence has to do with the fact that the Lone Wanderer appears to have had some ties to the railroad, thanks to some of his actions during the events of the replicated man side quest from Fallout 3.
I need to assign someone to
The
this.
Lone Wanderer is a morally upstanding individual and decides to go ahead and help Harkness maintain his identity and protect him from Dr. Zimmer and the Institute. The idea here is that because the Lone Wanderer decided to help protect the Synth, the Railroad consider him to be more of an ally than most other people that you might encounter in the Wasteland. And as you'll discover later on, the Railroad will attempt to recruit members that are seemingly sympathetic to the cause. Another important piece of evidence that seems to suggest that the Lone Wanderer and Deacon are the same person is based around some dialogue that Deacon will randomly say as you journey through the Capital Wasteland with him. Deacon seems to indicate that he has been to the Capital Wasteland during his travels when he says, quote, "I miss the Capital Wasteland. You can actually drink the water there." The idea here is that perhaps Deacon was in the Capital Wasteland when he was formerly known as the Lone Wanderer. Finally, it's also suggested that the reason that
Just
Deacon
looking
and
to
the
trade a
Lone
little.
Wanderer are the same
Go ahead.
person is that they would appear to be around the same age. In Fallout 3, the Lone Wanderer is around 19 years old. In Fallout 4, the Lone Wanderer would be around 29 years old. And it's speculated by some in the community that Deacon looks like he is around 29 years old as well, and therefore Deacon and the Lone Wanderer might be the same person. With all of this said, I actually have quite a number of criticisms of a lot of this evidence. Let's start with the Lone Wanderer's connections to the railroad. While it's likely that the Lone Wanderer helped Harkness during the events of Fallout 3, just because he has sympathies for synths doesn't necessarily make him a direct ally of the railroad. After all, the Lone Wanderer ends up joining the Brotherhood of Steel, which is an organization that may have deviated from its original goals in Fallout 3, but on an organizational level is very much against the idea of synths. And this is especially the case in Fallout 4. And I would argue that because the Lone Wanderer joined the Brotherhood of Steel, the Railroad would view the Lone Wanderer as a possible enemy, or at the very least, someone that couldn't be trusted with extremely sensitive information. As for Deacon's remarks on going to the Capital Wasteland, there are many
What's
characters
going on?
that have been to or are from the Capital Wasteland. For example, Dr. Lee came from the Capital Waste, along with other characters like Holden Maxson and Robert McCready. The children of Adam that appear in the Far Harbor DLC also appear to have been from the Capital Wasteland, which means key players like High Confessor Tectus and Grand Central Drifter are from the as well. My point is that going to the Capital Wasteland on its own isn't particularly special because there are so many people that are either from there or claim to have gone there. Now, with this said, people's crime that implies he has been here is still important. However, it's only important because he indicates the canon ending for Fallout 3. After all, it's pretty nice to know that Project Purity was successful and is currently active in the Wasteland during the events of Fallout 4. It's also worth noting that just because the Lone Wanderer and Deacon might appear to be the same age at first glance, doesn't necessarily mean that the Lone Wanderer and Deacon are the same person. It's worth mentioning that Deacon has been able to change his appearance several times, and it's possible that Deacon could have looked entirely different 10 years ago than it currently does now. There are even reports from the Railroad that Deacon spent a month working like a ghoul, and as you can see, it clearly says, quote, "I kicked Deacon out of HQ, got sick of the lying, face-changing son of a bitch. That month he spent as a ghoul freaked a lot of people out." And this is important to note because while Deacon may look like he's 29 during the event of game, that doesn't necessarily mean that he is from the Bible. If there's anything you take away from what I just mentioned, it's the following. First, just because the Lone Wanderer and Deacon appear to look the same age doesn't mean that they are, especially since Deacon is well known for changing his face and taking on other people's identities. Second, while it does appear that Deacon has been to the Capital Wasteland and his statements that, quote, you can actually drink the water there is important, the fact that he's been to the Capital Wasteland in of itself isn't that important. After all, we've had several different NPCs like Maxon, McCready, Dr. Lee, like Professor Tectus, and many others that claim to have gone or come from the Capital Wasteland. The third and final thing is that while the Lone Wanderer does or may have sympathy for sin, his or her allegiances compromise their chances of being trusted by the Railroad completely. Perhaps he is an ally of some sort, but I doubt someone like Desdemona would entrust the Lone Wanderer with the location of their headquarters, knowing they have allegiance with one of their sworn enemies. Now, I'd like to go ahead and discuss much of the evidence that suggests that Deacon and the Lone Wanderer couldn't possibly be the same person. Worth just noting that Deacon does have a tendency to lie, and it's reasonable to suggest that the story he tells about his early life is true. His early life story doesn't even remotely line up with that of the Lone Wanderers. Once you've achieved a significant amount of affinity with Deacon, he will tell you about his early life story, and here is that dialogue exchange.
Go on. I ran with a gang in University Point. We called ourselves the UP Death Claws. For kicks, we terrorize anyone who follows a sin. We kept egging each other on. Started with some property damage, graduated to some beatdowns. Then, inevitably, lynching. The Claws leader was convinced we finally found and killed the sin. Looking back, I'm not so sure.
Feeling a bit parched, sir?
Heads up.
Sir?
Hey, Codsworth.
Another is already in the works.
Your thoughts?
The past, the present, and the future. It was tense.
One day I found some.
Your thoughts?
Only the anxiety of what future adventures await us, sir. I'm sorry. Did I say anxiety? I meant anticipation.
Are things all right between us?
A difficult inquiry, sir. I wonder the same thing myself. Things have certainly changed, and not for the better.
We were trying.
That's all for now.
All right, then.
Eking out a living. Then one day, turns out my Barbara, she was a sin. She didn't know that. I certainly didn't. I don't know how the fuck I found out. It was blood. Shit. I'm sorry. I don't remember much clearly after that. But I know I killed most of the Claws. I must have made a big impression. The railroad contacted me to do what I did after.
This story, if true, would be an indicator that Deacon is actually from the Commonwealth. While Deacon does have a reputation for being a liar, I do think that on some level there are probably elements of the truth within Deacon's life. Perhaps he wasn't a member of the UP Death Claw specifically, but it might be true that he was in a gang that once hated synths. It's also possible that he fell in love with the synth, just not a synth named Barbara. Either way, the next thing I will discuss basically confirms that Deacon isn't the Lone Wanderer. If you check the terminals at the railroad's headquarters, there are at least 3 terminal entries that mention Deacon before 2277, which is the year that the Lone Wanderer left Baltimore 1 and the events of Fallout 3 took place. The first entry is dated to 2273 and discusses how Deacon was able to successfully evacuate his previous railroad headquarters. And finally, Deacon is mentioned again in 2276, when he is compared to Desdemona and Carrington. There's also the possibility that Deacon may also be the mysterious John P. that appears in terminal entries that are dated even earlier. While this is Desdemona's theory, if it holds true, then Deacon would have been a member of the railroad since at least 2266, which would have been 11 years before the events of Fallout 3. All of this would seem to suggest that Deacon has been operating out in the wasteland before the Lone Wanderer even left Vault 101, and because of that, Deacon and the Lone Wanderer couldn't possibly be the same person. While I think it's fairly conclusive that Deacon and the Lone Wanderer are the same person, I do think it would be possible for Deacon to become the Lone Wanderer, or at the very least, be able to impersonate the Lone Wanderer's looks. As we've established, Deacon is a face changer, and it's possible that he could change his face to look more like the Lone Wanderer. The only reason I could think of that Deacon would want to emulate the Lone Wanderer would be to gain some kind of intelligence from the Brotherhood of Steel. Still, it might be difficult for Deacon to pass as the Lone Wanderer, especially since Deacon may not be able to change his voice to emulate the Lone Wanderer's. So,
Hi.
Looking to make a deal?
His voice to emulate anyone,
That'd be great.
he could literally be anyone he wants. Even if he can't mimic any man perfectly, Deacon does appear to be convinced
Miss
enough
Abernathy.
to appear as anyone from
Thanks for agreeing to help.
and throughout the beginning stages of the
I've got that
game,
locket back
he
for
is
you.
good enough to
You
where he
serious?
can blend in and
That's
absorb
great
the terror
news.
without noticing.
Connie's gonna be speechless. I'm sure she'll go lean on her prices after what you've done. And feel free to use our workshop. At least we do.
I'll also agree that
Let's trade some things.
Okay.
and Deacon is most likely the mysterious John D. that is mentioned in some of the railroad's
Hey there.
terminal entries.
Blake told me what you did for us. For Mary.
And argue that John
I know
D,
it's not...
much like the name
Are
Deacon,
we
is
holding
another
up?
Thanks
alias
to you.
that stands for John
Better.
Doe. So on
Mary
some
was a
level,
good kid.
we're never really going to know who Deacon truly is. Especially when you
You did your
consider that
best.
Deacon
Did I?
lies all the time.
Uh-huh.
We knew
changes
the
his
risks
face,
of having...
and
But it
most
was worth
people
it.
that
Uh-huh.
knew
Anyway,
what he once looked
enough.
are
Like I
probably
said,
dead.
if you need...
In my
It's
mind,
not every day
Deacon
a
is
stranger...
a perfect spy because Deacon can
Don't need
argue
anything today.
anyone
Suit yourself.
and no one. He changes his face as a means
Let's
to
trade.
conceal what
Sure
he
thing.
truly is, and even his own allies aren't entirely sure who he is. For all they know, he could be the same John D. that's been a member of the railroad long before people like Desmona showed up and decided to lead the organization. Or perhaps he's not John D. and he did end up joining the railroad in 2273, like those railroad terminal entries seem to suggest. In a way, it doesn't really matter who he is. After all, even if he told the truth, most people would probably think he's lying by this point. And there's also a good chance that anyone in the railroad that knew who he was during the 2260s and early 2270s is probably dead by this point. At the end of the day, Deacon might be the Lone Wanderer if he decides to impersonate them. Though Deacon couldn't possibly be the same person that left Vault 101 and helped restore Project Purity. After all, the person that goes by Deacon appears to have been in the Commonwealth around the early 2270s, and even as early as the 2260s. So is Deacon the Lone Wanderer? Only if he wants to be. But is the Lone Wanderer Deacon? No. But alright guys, I think that's going to wrap up this particular video. If you like this video, feel free to leave a like, click the bell to join the notification squad, and as always, take care, and I'll see y'all next time. You're watching Vinyl Akuma Gaming. What's up guys, back with another Fallout 4 video, and today I want to talk about companions and followers in this game. Instead of talking about the best followers in Fallout 4, I figured we could go ahead and discuss some of the worst companions or followers in Fallout 4. We'll be going over everything from who has the worst default weapons to the worst special stats, the worst companion perks, and much more. Now, before we get into this video, I'm not going to really evaluate who the worst companion is based on their personality. Otherwise, we could go ahead and say that somebody like Preston Garvey sucks because he is annoying and he will relentlessly inform you that another settlement needs your help. Otherwise, Preston has fairly decent stats and has a really good companion perk for you to acquire. Ultimately, while I may consider what companions like or dislike based on how easy or difficult it is to reach their maximum affinities, I'm not necessarily judging these companions based on whether they like theft, being peaceful, or if they like cannibalism. I will leave it to you guys to make those judgments because that's not really my place. But without further ado, let's go ahead and discuss who I think the worst companion in Fallout 4 is. So every
Seems to be
companion in
growing
Fallout
well.
4 starts off with their own default weapons. While it's true you can equip almost any weapon to any companion with the exception of the robot companions for Dogmeat, there is some significant discrepancy between who has the best default weapon and who has the worst. I would argue default weapons are important, since the default weapon is what these companions resort to when they run out of ammo. When it comes to the best default weapons, I would say that both Old Longfellow and Porter Gage win that contest. Old Longfellow comes equipped with a lever-action rifle, which has fairly decent damage, despite its awful reload animation and awkward and heavy ammo for survival mode. Porter Gage comes with a handmade rifle, which is probably the best rifle in Fallout 4 now. You may find that Gage is quite effective in combat simply because he has one of the best weapons available as his default. Otherwise, for the vanilla game, you have Paladin Dance and X688, who are equipped with laser and institute lasers respectively. You have McCready and Deacon, who are equipped with hunting rifles. Kate and Hancock are equipped with double-barreled shotguns, and Piper has a 10mm pistol. Overall, I'd say all of the default weapons on offer here are fairly decent, even if Piper's 10mm pistol is a little bit lacking. However, when it comes to the worst default weapons, I think that both Preston Garvey and Nick Valentine have some of the worst default weapons available. Preston comes equipped with the laser musket, while Nick Valentine comes equipped with the pipe revolver. Of the two, Preston's weapon is probably the worst, since it's incapable of a decent rate of fire. Preston has to crank this gun constantly, and if damage values are consistent among the weapons we use and what our companions use, Preston's laser musket is dealing about 30 damage per shot or so. Compare this to Dance's laser rifle, which deals less damage per shot, but he can fire a lot more shots off within the same time span. Granted, you can give both of these characters better weapons if you really want to, but at the end of the day, I'm going to go ahead and say that Preston probably... Another thing I think that we should consider is who has the worst stats or worst special of all the companions. On the high end of the spectrum, companions like Strong, Hancock, Valentine, Codsworth, X688, and even Piper have really good special scores. While some of these, like Nick, Piper, and Hancock, are terrible with melee attacks, X688, Codsworth, and Strong have fairly decent strength stats. And it may actually be a good idea to upgrade Codsworth with Automatron, as he has the second highest strength stat of all of the companions, and is only surpassed by Strong. In general, most of the companions in Fallout 4 have pretty uniform stats, and while some are better than others, I think you're going to be happy if you choose someone like Piper, Dogmeat, Deacon, Preston, or Dave. As both of these characters seem to be boosted versions of their previously mentioned counterparts. With that said, I do think there are some companions you should avoid when it comes to their special. While the DLC companions, Old Longfellow and Porter Gage, may start off with some really good default weapons, they have fairly low special stats. While Gage is fairly strong, he doesn't have a single special stat that's at rank 10, and Old Longfellow only has agility at rank 10. The vast majority of companions in Fallout 4 Vanilla have at least 2 special stats that rank in the double digits. Interestingly, despite being able to provide a decent companion perk, McCready's stats somehow manage to be worse than either Old Longfellow or Porter Gage. While McCready has a perception rank of 10 and comes with a hunting rifle, it appears that McCready's endurance stat is too low. The average for most other companions is about 7 or 8, while McCready is rocking 4. However, the undisputed worst special stats on any companion has to go to Curie. Now, the Miss Nannybot version of Curie is pretty bad, however, you'll find that she has a significantly above average intelligence stat. However, the synth version of Curie is truly awful. Not only does the synth version of Curie not have a single double-digit special stat, but the synth version of Curie has inferior stats to the Nannybot version. The 11 intelligence Curie had before drops down to 4, and the only thing that improves is strength, which goes up to 5, which ends up matching the vast majority of other companions in Fallout 4. While Curie as a Miss Nanny bot has decent health really early on, as you get higher in level, characters like Strong and McValentine will get more health. I would say unless you want to romance Curie just because, I really don't recommend making her a synth. Maybe I'd recommend using her if you want her companion perk, as it is really decent, but otherwise, pick any other companion in this game for combat. Speaking of companion perks, some of the companions we previously discussed as having truly bad attributes have really good companion perks. Curie has Combat Medic, which is nice for emergency healing. Valentine has Close to Metal, which improves your hacking abilities, and Quarter Gauge has Lessons in Blood, which improves your speed while also buffing damage resistance. However, other characters like Preston, Deep, Hancock's Isodope is great for Radiation Blast Cannon style builds. Beacon's Cloak and Dagger is amazing for stealth. Preston's United We Stand boosts damage when you're outnumbered, and overall, I would say that for the most part, the companions I just mentioned offer really nice companion perks that are worth having. After that, I would say things kind of start to go downhill, and while Dance's and Piper's perks are fairly decent, and even Strong's companion perk is pretty good, I would say that X688 Shield Harmonics is fairly lousy. This skill simply provides plus 20 to energy resistance. This effect can be achieved with the and while it's true you won't need 7 perception with Shield Harmonics, I really wonder if it's really worth it to even go after the perk. You can achieve a better buff by simply killing a rad scorpion, cooking it at a cooking station, and eating the steak that it produces. While this buff would only last an hour, you can always find another rad scorpion. Or you can work Cave Cricket and achieve a very similar result. I think the worst companion perks, or lack thereof, goes to Codsworth, Ada, and the Automaton companions that you can build. While I will admit criticizing Ada is a bit of a cheap shot, she is the Automatron's signature companion, and the fact that you can't build affinity with her is pretty lame. As for Codsworth though, Robot Sympathy is probably the weakest companion perk in the game. Not only does this perk provide less of a boost than X688's Shield Harmonics, but it is only viable with energy attacks from robots. This locks out a significant amount of the enemy pool that uses energy weapons, like the Brotherhood of Steel, the Gunners, and some super mutants. It's baffling to me that such a good character in terms of stats can have such a lousy companion perk. Maybe this perk would be useful during Nuka World's Galactic Zone or during the Automatron DLC, but robots are relatively uncommon in Fallout 4 Vanilla, and for the most part, most Mr. Gutsies have minigun-type weapons, and the only real energy weapons you're going to be encountering are Assaultron eye lasers. So you basically have a companion perk that is dedicated to defending you from Assaultron eye lasers. While I wouldn't say you shouldn't choose Codsworth over this lousy perk, it is worth mentioning this. As I said, it's a shame since Codsworth is pretty good in a lot of other areas. He has really good base stats, and you can mod him into an automatron with a robot workbench if you want. I suppose he's better than Ada or a generic automatron in this regard, but I wish Codsworth simply had a better companion perk. Now, I suppose one of the last things that we can discuss before declaring a worst companion in this game is how easy or difficult it is to achieve maximum affinity with specific companions. All of the characters have certain things that they like or love that you can constantly do over and over again to quickly increase their affinity with you. For example, a great way to increase your affinity with Kate or Hancock is to simply perform actions in the nude. Or to quickly increase your affinity with Codsworth, Dance, or X688, you can simply mod weapons and armor. In fact, Dance and X688 really like it when you enter power armor. While most characters don't have affinity quests, characters like Dance, Curie, Kate, McCready, and Nick do. Otherwise, you won't be able to achieve their companion perks. That said, for the most part, it's pretty easy to reach a position to where you can start these affinity quests. I would say the most difficult companion to achieve maximum affinity with is probably going to be Strong. Strong dislikes picking locks, stealing, entering power armor, or passing speech checks. Many of the actions you can perform that are usually going to greatly benefit you as the player end up making Strong upset. And while you can engage in cannibalism in order to increase Strong's affinity, the cannibal ability can cause the dark craving status effect in survival mode. This makes it so regular food never satiates you, and you will have to engage in cannibalism in order to remove your hunger status effect. The other side effect of this is instead of going from, say, satisfied to peckish, you go from satisfied to very hungry very quickly.
I hope you realize how
Accompanied
much
by
you
a
did for
severe
us.
decrease to your stats. Expect to see decreases to your charisma, endurance, and your luck stat. And the effects to your maximum health alone should be relatively severe. Now, for this entire video, I haven't really come out and declared who the worst companion actually is. In my opinion, there isn't really a clear answer. In other words, no companion has a truly awful default weapon combined with bad stats and a bad companion perk for reaching maximum affinity. However, I think if I had to absolutely pick one, I would say that Curie is probably the worst companion in Fallout 4. Even then, the positive aspect of Companion Curie is that she has the highest health of any of the companions really early on. However, she is eventually surpassed by Strong and Valentine, and both of these characters have higher health than average. What I think is bizarre is that her special stats get worse once she becomes a synth. While her strength ends up matching what we see on other companions, the rest of her attributes are all solid 4s. So this basically puts you in the position where if you end up using Curie, you're probably going to want her to get her companion perk, and then you're just going to want to send her to a settlement where she will never be used again. While her companion perk isn't amazing, it is moderately good and may prove useful early on. Even still, it's pretty hard to pick just one truly awful companion in this game. Most of the vanilla game companions are really good, and even the DLC companions that have lousy stats actually end up being superior to the vanilla companions since they tend to have better default weapons. Ultimately, I think Curie is probably the worst companion for combat purposes though. Her stats are too low and get worse once she becomes a synth. I'd recommend that you choose literally anyone else, and if you do, you're going to have a far better companion. Alright guys, that's going to wrap up this particular video. If you like this video, please be sure to leave a like, click the bell to join the notification squad, and as always, take care, and I'll see y'all next time.
This Memorial Day at Furniture Row, we're cooking for savings so big, they're backing them in by the truckload. Save $100 on every $1,000 you spend. Check out doorbusters while they last. Plus 6 years, no interest. The Memorial Day super sale. On now, Furniture Row.
I don't think we've met yet. I wanted to personally thank you for giving us this opportunity. Any place you want me to pitch
in? Hey guys, that's another Fallout 4 video.
Yeah,
and a couple
let me
weeks
show you.
back,
Okay.
I talked
Anything
a
I can
lot
do to help
about
out around
who I thought the worst companion in
let
Fallout
me show
4
you.
was.
Go ahead.
Ultimately, I decided it was both the Miss Nannybot Curie as well as the Synth Curie, mostly because of their special stats. After all, Synth Curie somehow manages to have worse stats than the Miss Nannybot version does, even though the Synth version of Curie is technically supposed to be an upgrade. Plus, the ability to provide the player with stim packs can leave something to be desired if you're playing in survival mode. So today, I figured we could discuss who the best companion or companions are. Now, like last time, I'm not judging the companions based on their personalities. Otherwise, Preston would probably be one of my least favorites, while Hyper and Dance might be my favorites. All judgments will be based on their combat abilities, what kinds of armor they can equip, what kinds of starting weapons they have, and what their max health is as well. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into it. Alright, so last time I mentioned that both of the human DLC companions have the best default or best
Just
starting
looking to
weapons.
trade a little.
After all, Porter H has access to a handmade rifle, and Old Longfellow has access to a lever action rifle. Both of these weapons tend to be superior to most of the vanilla game weapons of Fallout 4. However,
I just need to trade gear with
these,
these,
that Paladin Dance has access to a laser rifle. So if you don't have Fallout 4's DLC, it seems like that Dance would be one of the best
I'd like to
choices,
trade some
as
items.
his default
Sure thing.
weapon is a little bit better than what's on the other companions. The thing is, while Dance has pretty decent stats, both Porter Gage and Old Longfellow leave something to be desired, and almost any companion can equip any weapon. So you could still equip a handmade rifle to Piper or Hancock, and it may actually end up being better than what Gage or Old Longfellow can do. The problem with Dance is that you risk losing him during the Brothers questline, and you can't reach maximum affinity with him until you complete Blind Betrayal. Even if you manage to keep him after Blind Betrayal, Brotherhood soldiers can end up shooting him on sight if you're not careful of where you go in the Commonwealth. That said, Dance should be fine in areas like Bar Harbor or Nuka World. Ultimately, if you don't have DLC, go with Dance, and if you do have all of the DLC, it might be a good idea to pick either Porter Gage or Old Longfellow if default weapons are important to you. Another important attribute to consider is special. Of all the companions, Strong, Hancock, and Nick Valentine have the highest average special stats. Of the three, Hancock and
I want to trade a few
Valentine are
things.
probably the most balanced compared to the rest of the companions, while Strong has exceptional strength, endurance, and agility at the expense of everything else. Hancock and Valentine are very close in terms of special stats on average, and I would say that you should choose one based on which one that you like more. When it comes to the distribution of their special stats, Hancock tends to be a little more well-rounded, while Valentine seems to be more focused around intelligence. That said, Hancock and Nick Valentine's intelligence are both in the double digits and are both above 10. You might be surprised by this, but Codsworth has fairly high stats among all of the companions, and he is usually the first potential companion that you can acquire. While
Seems to be
he
growing
can't
well.
armor or equip weapons, he can be modified with a robot workbench from the Automatron DLC. So you could feasibly modify him beyond his original body into either something like a Sentry Bot or some Assaultron hybrid-type robot with either melee weapons or energy weapons. So if you find that you're not too crazy about Nick, Hancock, or Strong, Codsworth may be worth checking out. Plus, he's also one of the easier companions to reach maximum affinity with. So if special stats are important to you, I would say that Strong, Hancock, Nick Valentine, and Codsworth are among the best in this area. At the same time, Codsworth isn't that far ahead of characters like X688, Piper, Deacon, Preston, and Dick. These characters are capable of higher maximum health than most of the other companions in Fallout 4. Of course, this comes with the downside of finding armor to equip
I
for
need to
Strong,
assign someone to
and Nick
this.
Valentine is really only limited to his faded trench coat as well as his detective hat. That said, Nick Valentine can use power armor where Strong can't. Something else that I think is important to consider is companion perks. Even if you decide that you do find that one superior companion, you may want to travel with a few other companions to pick up their corresponding perks, and then kick them to the curb afterwards. I'd say that some of the best are probably going to be McCready's Kill Shot, Preston's United We Stand, Deacon's Cloak and Dagger, Porter Gage's Lessons in Blood, Know Your Enemy, and Curie's Combat Medic. Otherwise, I think you may find that the rest of the companion perks are alright. Nick Valentine's Close to Metal is nice for hacking computers, Hancock's Isodope is good for more radiation-based builds, and you may like Piper's Gift of Gab perk if you manage to reach maximum affinity with her early on. I would say that the only truly awful companion perk is going to be Codsworth's Robot Sympathy, which improves energy resistance against only robots. In terms of actually reaching each character's maximum affinity, it should be easiest on characters that don't have a specific companion quest. So this should exclude characters like Dance, Curie, Kate, Nick Valentine, and McCready because these characters do have a specific companion quest. Otherwise, the rest of the characters can reach maximum affinity pretty easily by performing specific tasks. And from my experience, I've found that it's really easy to raise affinity with Dance or Codsworth if you simply modify weapons and armor. And when it comes to maximizing affinity, Codsworth is probably the easiest, but he also has one of the weakest perks available, as we just discussed. The hardest companion to reach affinity with is Strong, which is a shame since he does have really good stats overall. And of the 5 characters that have a specific quest tied to them, I would say that completing Nick's, Creedy's, and Dance's is probably going to be the most worthwhile. Apparently, Kate's companion perk is bugged, and Curie's stats actually become worse upon reaching maximum affinity with her. And while Combat Medic is a pretty good perk, you're going to want to avoid Synth Curie. Now, while we're on the subject of companion perks and affinity, Dogmeat doesn't really require you to attain an affinity with him since his companion perk is integrated into your skill tree. Attack Dog requires 4 Charisma, and the final rank in the perk can be obtained at level 25 with proper perk investment. Basically, what the skill does is allows Dogmeat to hold enemies so you can more easily hit them in VATS. Additionally, higher ranks in Attack Dog offer things like a chance to cripple a limb or add bleed damage as well. So that's and what's also worth mentioning is that Dogmeat doesn't break the bonus you would get from the which can reduce the damage you take and improve your carry rates. And at higher ranks in Lone Wanderer, you get further reduced damage, further improved carry weight, and the ability to deal 25% more damage than you otherwise would. So while Dogmeat has less health than all of the other companions, you can actually increase your lethality, improve your carry weight, and reduce the damage you take by simply having the Lone Wanderer perk and having Dogmeat around. I suppose the final thing that we need to talk about is who has the best secondary ability. Now, secondary abilities can consist from things such as the ability to pick locks, hack computers, or things like providing the player with specific resources like purified water, stim packs, and other items every once in a while. Since we were just talking about Dogmeat, it's worth mentioning that Dogmeat has his fetch ability, which helps the player find various items or detect enemies. And if you're going with the Lone Wanderer perk, I'd say that this can prove to be useful. You may also find that having Kate around for picking up some expert locks will be quite useful if you specialize in hacking, or it might be useful to have Nick Valentine around to do all of your expert level hacking if you intend on not taking those perks. Otherwise, Codsworth can give you purified water, McCready will give you ammo, X688 will specifically give you fusion cells, Curie will give you stim packs, Hancock will give you chems, while Strong will provide you with different types of animal meat. The only companion that gives you relatively lame items is Piper, who will provide you with random things like sweet rolls, bubblegum, and other irradiated pre-war food. I suppose you can sell this stuff if you want, but most of it has little value anyway, which sucks. Now that we've pretty much gone over all of the companions' various abilities, I think I can pick a best companion as well as several other companions too. If I did just have to pick one companion though, I think I would ultimately have to take Nick Valentine. This is because he can be given weapons like any of the other companions, he can enter and use power armor, he has higher stats than most of the other companions, and he has the second highest health out of all of the companions in Fallout 4. The downside is that he can't equip any other clothes other than his protective clothes. So your chances of outfitting Nick with synth armor and going into battle are limited. Plus, one of the advantages of equipping regular armor pieces is that they don't break, and you can craft pocketed customizations which further improve a companion's carry weight. While power armor can achieve the same result, the problem is that power armor breaks where regular armor does not. With all of that said, I think Nick Valentine is probably the best companion. I'd say if you gave Nick the overboss armor from Nuka World, you're going to be getting pretty decent defenses with really low repair costs. Plus, you can mod the power armor legs to increase the carry weight so he can carry more weapons. Keep in mind too that Nick will still have much more health than the other companions, and once you've given him some good weapons to use, he should pretty much wreck face. Nick Valentine will also be useful for completing certain portions of Far Harbor as well. Other than Nick, I would probably recommend either Hancock, Strong, or Codsworth. Hancock is basically like most of the other companions with boosted stats. Strong is a super mutant with high strength and is great for melee, and Codsworth can be bonded with Automatron provided you have the Automatron deal.
Giving yourself a shot. Ow. No. Stepped on something. Love. Sweet love. You asleep? Yep. You put up the good fight. Shouldn't have been that much. Okay. You take it upstairs? Huh?
After that, I think you could say it's mostly just about preference at that point, with the exception of dog meat, and that is if you decide to get the Lone Wanderer perk. When it comes to Hancock, I would say that Hancock has a pretty good food perk, great stats,
Why are you putting something on over here?
Okay, you want me to turn off the TV?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
But I think you'll find that he can be really good in a fight. At the end of the day, I'm going to say that Nick, Hancock, Strong, Codsworth, and Dogmeat make great companions once you've gotten all of the companion parts that you want. All of them make great fighters, and Dogmeat in particular can allow you to benefit from the Lone Wanderer perk while he travels with you. And I suppose there are other great arguments to be made for all of the other companions in Fallout 4. However, I am going to say that these 5 are probably the best. Alright guys, that's going to wrap up this particular video. If you like this video, please be sure to leave a like and let me know who is your favorite companion in Fallout 4. Otherwise, like this video if you liked it, click the bell to join the notification squad, and as always, take care, and I'll see y'all next time.
What do you want? We don't need any more trouble around here.
What's up, guys? This is Arnold Puma. That's another Fallout 4
I'm not here to cause any
today.
trouble. I'm here to help. I'm with the Minutemen.
You're with the Minutemen? I didn't really think you fellas still existed. We sent word with one of them passing traders, but honestly, I never expected anything to come of it. Most people don't put much stock in the Minutemen these days after Quincy. Bad business,
I am going to be going over what starting special stats you should have.
We're rebuilding the Minutemen from the ground up. We're the good guys again.
Glad to hear it. No question that things have been worse since the Minutemen fell to pieces. There's a raider gang that's been giving us trouble for weeks, stealing food and supplies, threatening to kill us all if we don't pony up. We know where they're coming from, but we can't go up against a gang like that.
Like Sneak are going to be a must for any sniper build.
Will you be willing to join the Minutemen once I've dealt with those raiders?
Oh, we'll certainly give it a good long think. People have gotten used to not being able to count on you folks. It's not going to change overnight.
When it comes to VATS-centric sniper builds / setups, you're going to be more centered around using VATS to achieve headshots. This is actually surprisingly viable thanks to a number of perks, including the inherent sniper perk which you get with Ace Perception, as well as McCready's Killshot perk. Both of these perks should greatly increase your VATS hit chance while aiming for your target's head, and when combined with the inherent stealth of a sniper-type build, could potentially deal a bunch of damage this way. Plus, you also have easier access to criticals since you're using VATS more. This overall can be useful in a pinch, where you do get detected and you end up losing your sneak attack bonus. The downside to this type of setup, though, is that it requires fairly heavy perception investment, as VATS hit chance is affected by perception. Plus, and to even access the sniper perk, which makes VATS sniping more viable, you need a perception, which is pretty steep for any special stats, let alone perception, where a bunch of the better perks are available lower in the perk tree. Plus, VATS sniping isn't as good for super long distance shots, which are more easily pulled off manually, and that's something else to consider. As for the more manual type sniper build, the advantage you have here is that you don't have to focus as heavily on VATS. While you will still need some decent investment into agility to help with sneaking around, you can theoretically get by with less perception and luck investment since you aren't going to be using VATS all that much. This can be great as it frees up your perk points to put elsewhere, which is always a plus. That, and you might be surprised at how many of the more essential perks you'll need, like Rifleman, can be obtained with low perception investment. The downside with manual, though, is that you're relying much more on your capacity to maintain stealth, since that's going to provide the bulk of your damage bonus. If your stealth breaks, you lose the sneak attack multipliers, and while you can sometimes get your stealth back, getting your stealth back can become a problem in some situations, forcing you to rely on more conventional ranged combat tactics. On the flip side, though, you can usually more successfully pull shots off at higher ranges, allowing for more distance between you and the enemies, which makes maintaining your stealth a little bit easier. Personally, and between these two, I usually go for a more manual type setup, as it tends to free your perk points up a little bit more. However, that sniping works pretty well and can be great if you need to target something really quickly. Go ahead and we'll talk about starting special, starting with the special curve, which is the more manual setup. As you can see here, this is what I would prefer to do when putting together a sniper type build, as we have 2 strength, 4 perception, 3 endurance, 2 charisma, 6 intelligence, 7 agility, and 4 luck. When it comes to our lowest stats, which are strength, charisma, and endurance, I don't think you're going to need especially high investment in these areas. So the most useful perk in strength for a sniper is the armor perk, while the best perk for combat from charisma is Lone Wanderer. Both of these are achieved at 3 in each stat, meaning you can just find the corresponding strength and charisma level heads for an easy level up. You will find you want more charisma later on for local leader and maybe for passing speech checks. But just keep in mind that you really only need 11 charisma to pass any speech check in the game, which can be easily achieved via clothing and by taking certain consumables. As for endurance, you can just put an additional point here or get the endurance bubblehead for easy access to the chem resistant perk, which will be very useful if you're using chems, which is something that I would recommend you take advantage of. As for our moderate investments, which are in perception and luck, having 4 in these will still let you get access to riflemen, which you're definitely going to want, along with many utility perks like lockpicking, awareness, fortune finder, scrounger, and maybe even pickpockets if you want to use that. So you should be able to get a bunch of great utility as well as essential perks here. Finally, this brings us to intelligence and agility, which is where the majority of our stat allocation lies. High intelligence is always good for the increased XP gain and for the access to many useful perks in the tree. After all, medic, scrapper, science, gun nut, and even bands can be useful at rank 2. You won't need to necessarily max this out, though you might want to consider getting at least 7 intelligence so you can get the chemist perk, which goes really well with chem resistant. Agility, on the other hand, is probably the most essential stat for a sniper, and thus I've allocated the most points into it at the start. High agility will help you maintain stealth much easier, and with high investment initially, we can gain access to all of our sneak damage-based perks, like Ninja and Mr. Sandman. Later on, you want to keep going here and get 10 agility, which should be easier since you're starting with 7 agility already. If you want, you can tweak a few things here, though I wouldn't recommend going too far beyond what I've outlined here when it comes to strength, endurance, and charisma, as the former 2 don't necessarily need high investment, while the latter can always be increased later and as needed. You might be able to shave a bit off of intelligence to allocate elsewhere, but don't do too much as you lose access to the intelligence tree's many utility perks. Now that you've got an idea for a manual setup, let's talk about a VATS-centric one. As you can see here, I've allocated my points this way, with 2 strength, 5 perception, 3 endurance, 2 charisma, 5 intelligence, 6 agility, and 5 luck. What I've done here is shave off some points from intelligence and agility to reallocate them into perception and luck. Before, our perception was 4 and is now 5, while luck was 4 and is now also 5. The advantage of doing this is that you can more easily and with less perk investment get to some of the higher ranks of both perception and luck, which will give us access to some of the perks we need. For perception, we're going to want to get Sniper, Penetrator, and Concentrated Fire to help with our VATS hit chance, while in luck, you're going to want to get better criticals and Critical Banker. However, and if you decide to get even more luck investments, you can more easily get things like Grim Reaper Sprint and 4-leaf Clover as well, which will make filling the crit meter go a lot faster. The best part about this setup too is that you still get fairly high investment in agility, which should help with sneaking while also still allowing you easy access to Ninja, provided you either get the agility bobblehead or just use a perk point. From here, if you just got the intelligence bobblehead and didn't level intelligence any further, you can still get science, which is useful for crafting. And if you absolutely must have it, you can only put an additional point here to get chemist, which, if you ask me, is a pretty good perk. Otherwise, most of our other starting specials is basically the same. Low charisma can be boosted later or as needed. It's a trap. Damn it, they've got us surrounded. What do we do? As much in these to get the perks that you need. Which I'd say should be no further than
draw them off. Give me a count of 10, then break for the tree line. What? Dutchman,
It is worth mentioning that there is
There's no time. Good luck, A9.
If you're not using power armor, but there will be a high endurance investment to get there, so just keep that in mind if you want that perk.
No!
Starting special, it's about time we talk
No!
about essential perks.
No, I'm not going back. I can't.
You're going to absolutely want
I won't.
Perks, which are Rifleman, Sneak, Ninja, and Mr. Sandman. If you don't have these 4 perks, you need to get these 4 perks. And ideally, you should try to max them as soon as you can. This video was created by Vinyl Akuma of Vinyl Akuma Game. So a little while back, I made a video on the top 8 best, unique, and legendary weapon effects in Fallout 4. Some of you guys mentioned that I missed a couple of really good effects, and sure enough, I went back and I checked on some of the ones that you guys mentioned, and I decided I could go ahead and make another list on some great legendary weapon effects for Fallout 4 that I missed. Now including some of the legendary weapon effects mentioned by you guys, top 6 more unique and legendary weapon effects in Fallout 4. Let's go ahead and start with number 6, the Stalker's Effect. The Stalker's Effect is quite nice, provided you have the extra action points to take advantage of it. What the Stalker's Effect does is it increases VAT's hit chance, but at a higher action point cost. This ability makes it very easy to pull off headshots when using VATs, and you can actually maximize the effects of the Stalker's Effect further by acquiring Joseph McCready's Kill Shot perk, which boosts your hit chance for targeting heads in VATs by an additional 20%. While it doesn't boost damage like the Instigating Effect, this ability does make it fairly easy to snipe enemies in VATs. Simply trigger VATs, pick a body part, and just go to town. Now, it might be because I'm not using the stealth character, or my character has relatively low perception, but my VATS accuracy is still fairly low at considerable distances, and I'd be willing to argue the case that sometimes you might just be better off manually aiming and attempting a headshot instead of taking the risk and missing with VATS, even with the Stalker's Effect weapon. The Tinker Tom Special is the only unique weapon in Fallout 4 that contains the Stalker effect. If you'd like to obtain the Tinker Tom Special, you can by purchasing it from Tinker Tom, who is a part of the Railroad. Number 5, the Plasma. I'll just go ahead and mention this, but both the Plasma infused effect and the freeze effect are the big difference is that the Plasma infused effect doesn't freeze enemies on critical hits, and instead has a chance to occasionally goof by enemies once you kill them. While I'd argue that the plasma-infused effect is not quite as good as the explosive effect for boosting the damage of your weapons, you can still double both the weapon's base damage and the actual plasma-based energy damage from basic weapon perks, like the Gunslinger perk for non-automatic pistols, the Rifleman perk for non-automatic rifles, the Commando perk for automatic weapons, and Heavy Gunner for heavy weapons. When compared to other weapons with elemental-like effects like the Gainer and Ashmaker that have the incendiary effect, there is a noticeable damage improvement on weapons with the plasma-infused effect that have it applied, especially on a minigun or other weapons with low damage per shot per bullet. Another example would be the submachine gun that fires 45 rounds. At this time, there are currently no unique weapons that have the plasma-infused effect for the vanilla game of Fallout 4. Now, it is possible that they may appear in later DLC expansions. Number 4, freezing effect. As mentioned in our previous entry, the freezing effect and the plasma-infused effect are very similar. The difference being that instead of occasionally goofying enemies when they die, the freezing effect will freeze an enemy upon scoring a critical hit in battle. As an interesting aside, for whatever reason, I can't get the freezing effect to work. And I'm curious if anyone else has experienced this issue. Maybe it is just unique to the minigun and is like a weird bug. Like the plasma freezing effect, you can double a freezing effect weapon's base damage and energy damage by placing points into either ability to beautify enemies upon death, and the ability to freeze enemies on critical hits. Honestly, I would go ahead and say that the ability to freeze enemies is better than the plasma ability to freeze enemies. At this time, just like the plasma, there are currently no unique weapons that have the freeze effect. Now, it is possible that they may appear later in future DLC expansions. Number 3, the kneecapper effect. To be honest with you guys, since you pointed this out and I finally got around to testing it, I kind of feel bad about not including this one in the original episode, especially since I included the staggering effect in the original episode, and I would argue that the kneecapper is actually better up against melee enemies. What the kneecapper effect does is it cripples an enemy's legs and works on pretty much every enemy that you can imagine. It's kind of funny. I've actually gotten this to work on like sentry bombs. Once an enemy has been crippled, they fall unless they have a way to heal, like a stim pack, for example. This ability has the capacity to be extremely powerful and work wonders against enemies that only have melee attacks. The kneecapper effect allows you to basically just it's absolutely insane. You can see where the legs have been broken. It's kind of gross, actually, but it's kind of awesome at the same time. If you can find one of these, I recommend these for like automatic weapons, particularly ones with cheap ammo, like either a automatic pipe pistol or rifle, or a minigun, as both 38 ammo and 5mm ammo is very cheap to purchase. Otherwise, the Big Jim Wrench is the only unique weapon in Fallout 4 with the kneecapper effect. Big Jim Wrench is acquired by traveling to Walden Pond and going to the Walden Pond gift shop basement. The entrance is a big grain spot. Number 2, the never-ending effect. The never-ending effect was going to originally be in the original countdown, but for whatever reason I decided to cut it. I think that was because I wasn't really thinking about all of the possibilities for the never-ending effect that it can provide to your arsenal. While I particularly like the never-ending effect on weapons like the laser pistol and rifle or the plasma pistol and rifle, the never-ending effect is exceptional on both low and relatively low ammo capacity weapons. Specifically guns like the double-barrel shotgun, the Fat Man launcher, the missile launcher, and even the I would go ahead and say that the never-ending effect on 20 mini-nukes in the span of like 5 seconds. Prototype UP-77 quotations limitless potential, and the laser rifle laser weapon. UP-77 is fired by unlocking the master lock at University Point inside the University Point Credit Union, while the laser rifle is acquired by beating the game under certain conditions and completing a certain unmarked side quest. Number 1, the instigating effect. The instigating effect is incredible on sniper-type weapons or weapons that have very high base damage. Some weapons that come to mind are Gauss rifles, Fat Mans, missile launchers, plasma snipers, laser snipers, hunting rifles, and even a pipe bolt-action rifle. Otherwise, I wouldn't recommend the instigating effect on automatic weapons or low base damage weapons that are capable of really high DPS. So think of something like a Ripper. You figure if the Gauss rifle has a base damage of 192 when fully upgraded, provided you have an instigating Gauss rifle with a suppressor, you can get like 5.25 times sneak attack damage with both the Mr. Sandman perk and the Ninja perk both maxed out. You could deal up to like 2,000 damage. Even if you were wearing power armor and or no suppressor, that would still be like 1,300 damage. Keep in mind, that's without the Rifleman perk, which you would most likely have bringing the damage from like 2,000 to like 4,000 damage, and 1,300 damage to like 2,700 damage. The Old Faithful laser pistol / rifle and the Sentinel's plasma caster are unique weapons that contain the instigating effect. The Old Faithful is brought from Arturo to Diamond City, while the Sentinel's plasma caster is acquired by reaching the rank of Sentinel within the Brotherhood of Steel. Anyway, guys, that's going to pretty much wrap up this particular video. If you like this video, please be sure to leave a like. I think in a couple days, I am going to do the top X worst legendary weapon
Won't be able
effects
to pick
at some
this.
point. Maybe I'll do one for the armor effects as well. But again, if you have any suggestions for that, leave that in the comments below. But again, guys, take care, and I'll see y'all next time.
Perfect.
The Chase Inc. Business Cash Card gives you up to 5% cash back on business essentials like internet, cable, and phone services.
When you start small, you need some big help, and Chase Inc. was that.
This video was created by Violent Kuma of Violent Kuma Gaming. So it looks like I'm about 4 to 5 months late on getting this particular video out. Well, it's finally here. Now today I'm going to be going over what I think are some of the worst legendary effects available to the player in Fallout 4. Now at least one of these was added with the new Far Harbor DLC, and one was so bad that it went unused by the developers at Bethesda. Now, I suppose you could make an argument that some of these are good, but compared to some other legendary effects that are available in the game, I would say that you're going to want to avoid these particular legendary weapon effects. Now, without further ado, these will be the top 6 worst legendary and unique weapon effects in Fallout 4, starting with
Loctite.
the incendiary effect. The problem with the incendiary effect on weapons is that it doesn't scale with certain perks at all. For example, freezing scales with either Gunslinger, Heavy Guns, Rifleman, or the Commando perk, depending on the weapon, as does the Plasma Infused legendary weapon effect. Explosive weapons can scale with both of the previously mentioned perks, as well as the Demolition Expert perk. And really the best example is to compare the explosive minigun to the Ashmaker, or just a regular incendiary minigun. Now, sure, the Ashmaker is easier to acquire, but you can make the explosive minigun 10 times more powerful thanks to boosts from both the Demolition Expert perk as well as the Heavy Guns perk. The damage over time abilities caused by lighting enemies on fire are also quite weak. You may notice it at lower levels, but once you reach near the end of the game where you're starting to encounter enemies with considerably more health, the damage over time barely affects these particular enemies. Now, I suppose to be fair, it's not the end of the world if you have this on your weapon, as it is better than weapons without the incendiary effect at all, but the damage benefits aren't really that big of a deal. Now, if you are curious, this incendiary effect is seen on both the Gainer 44 pistol and the Ashmaker minigun from the game. Number 5, the Nimble effect. This effect provides 75% faster movement speed while aiming. Now, the first problem with this is that it doesn't improve the damage potential of the weapon at all. Now, granted, it doesn't hurt the damage potential of it. However, the second problem with this effect is that it doesn't work unless you aim, and the problem with aiming down sights while moving is that it lowers the situational awareness. Now, this is particularly bad if you have either a sight-mounted gun or especially a sniper. And, of course, field of view decreases significantly while aiming down the sight of your weapon, making it hard to see what's to the right or left of you, vision on what's in front of you. Now, to put some of my own bias into this entry, the Death from Above rocket launcher has this legendary weapon effect. My question simply is, how does the Nimble effect make the Death from Above more viable than a standard missile launcher in terms of damage? You know, maybe this is better on pistols and stealth launchers, but honestly, I think I would rather just be happy knowing that I would on receiving a Nimble submachine. Number 4, the Bloody effect. So this legendary weapon effect allows you to deal more damage while lowering your health. Now, the first problem I have with the Bloodied effect is that ideally, you never want to have low health, ever. This is especially true in survival mode, because one hit at 10% of your health is a guaranteed instant kill in most cases. I guess the idea here is that you're supposed to use this effect as a last-ditch resort. Honestly, I think you're just better off carrying other weapons with or without legendary weapon effects. Also, consider certain player builds. Snipers and stealth characters deal the maximum amount of damage and are safest when they have close to full health. Plus, if you're a stealth or sniper character, you're at a significant distance, the idea being that you're not getting hit in order to take advantage, I guess, of the Bloody effect. I don't know, guys. If you ask me, just avoid the Bloody effect.
Won't be able to
and
pick
I
this.
guess, though, if you are curious, you can get the Survivor's special laser weapon from Paladin Brandis, depending on how you decide to resolve the Lost Patrol side quest mission for the Brotherhood of Steel in Fallout 4's game. Number 3, the Junkie effect. This effect becomes obsolete once you've invested in the Party Boy or Girl perks and the Chem Resistant perks. Another thing that's worth mentioning is that you have to be addicted to 11 different things in order to get the most benefit out of this legendary weapon effect. Now, assuming you were addicted to just Buffout, Fury, Psycho, Jet, and Medex, you're taking a serious hit to your character's carry weight, as well as you're losing a decent amount of maximum health and action points. Now, to be more precise, this is a constant -4 debuff to your strength stat, a -2 debuff to endurance and agility, and a -1 debuff to perception. Not to mention the -20 debuff to your overall damage resistance stats.
Sweet.
I suppose you could use this early on, however, it'll be worthless to you later on, especially once you've acquired some of those endurance and those charisma perks that I mentioned earlier. There are no unique weapons that contain this effect, so you'll need to get lucky or unlucky to acquire a weapon with this legendary weapon effect, depending on your point of view. Number 2, the Resolute effect. So this effect was recently added with the new Fall Harbor DLC that just came out for Fallout 4. This is a legendary effect that seems cool on paper, however in practical use it's just annoying in my opinion. What the Resolute effect does is it slows down time when the last round in a ranged weapons magazine is changed. Typically, at least in my opinion, when you want the effects of Jet, you want to be able to shoot more. This is because you want to take advantage of the slightly higher fire rate and lower recoil abilities that Jet or slow down time gives you. I think Bethesda intended this to be used on like a sniper rifle type weapon, which is the only real weapon type that I see the Resolute effect being viable for. That way you could feasibly perform that perfect headshot on time with that last bullet. However, the thing is that this ability is totally outclassed by the Deadeye effect because it's much easier to use, and all you have to do is just aim the weapon to slow down time. Now, as far as I'm aware, there is no unique weapon with the Resolute effect, so you'll have to get lucky or unlucky to find it, again, depending on your point of view. And finally, number 1, the Medics effect. This is possibly the worst legendary weapon effect in all of Fallout 4. Why? Well, the Medics effect heals whatever you are shooting it at. This includes companions, however this also includes like enemy creatures, enemy humans, enemy super mutants, whatever you can think of. This gun will not damage you or anything you're shooting at. It is worth mentioning that the Medics effect went unused by the developers over at Bethesda, and I would argue that that was for a good reason. That said, I think I could see the viability for the Medics effect if Fallout 4's game mechanics were a little bit different. For example, you could use the Medics effect to heal your companion from a safe distance instead of going up to them directly and using an impact like you normally would. At the same time, it seems like Bethesda could have made this weapon only heal allied companions or NPCs, and then just damage all the rest, or enemies. A Medic's Fat Man that dealt damage to enemies and healed your allies would have been incredible. Probably the most overpowered weapon in the game. And, I don't know, maybe you could call it the care package. I don't know, just an idea. Anyway, guys, that's going to pretty much wrap up this particular video. If you like this video, please be sure to leave a like, and as always, take care, and I'll see y'all next time.
Heads up.
Can I be a...
You're watching Vinyl Akuma Gaming. So since you guys like the list on the best guns for Fallout 4 Survival Mode, I figured I'd make a list on some of the worst guns that you should really avoid for Fallout 4 Survival Mode. Now, I'm going to have to issue a trigger warning for this video. You may be wondering why some of the guns on here are bad. What I will say is that it usually depends on the gun. Some of the heavy weapons that you'll see on this list are bad because the ammo that they use is just ridiculously heavy. At the same time, some of the other weapons that I'll be going over are just awful in general, or they're just glitchy to use. Now, like last time, this video will be spoiler-free, and without further ado, these are what I think are the top 9 worst guns and weapons for Fallout 4 Survival Mode. Number 9, shotguns in general. Shotguns can actually be quite good, especially if you can get a shotgun with the explosive effect, or if you can get them with other good legendary weapon effects like two-shot, or maybe even the staggering or kneecapper effects. However, like many other weapons on this list, the ammo for the shotgun is simply too heavy. You can only carry 10 shotgun shells per pound, which is way below average when compared to most other ammo types. You will also find that you need to be fairly close to an enemy in order to get the maximum amount of damage. In order to deal the amount of damage that you listed on the item card, all of the projectiles you hit are on target. Not only will you have to be point blank to guarantee the most damage, but you will also need to get each projectile to hit the same body part as well. On the flip side, if you have a shotgun with the explosive effect, you'll find that you'll actually deal more damage than listed on the item card, since the explosive effect adds additional damage to each projectile. What I will say is that if you want to use the shotgun, get the explosive shotgun, otherwise I just recommend you use something else. Number 8, the railway rifle. So what I will say about the railway rifle is that it does have some good things going for it. It deals a lot of damage per shot for a rifle-type weapon. Rail spike ammo has armor penetration, which makes it good up against like fire, and you can occasionally retrieve rail spikes off the corpses of the enemy. Other than that, at least as far as survival mode is concerned, I would say it's all downhill. The first problem that you'll notice is you can only carry 5 rail spikes per pound, which makes rail spikes extremely ammo inefficient. Assuming you fired a pound of ammo, you would only deal 500 damage before perks or any other bobbleheads or anything like that. Another issue that you'll notice is that the damage can't be improved as you upgrade the receiver. While you can make the railway rifle into an automatic weapon, and it might be really good the lack of damage improvement is sort of a letdown for me personally, especially when you consider that you can only carry 5 spikes per pound. I think you'll find that the railway rifle is a little bit better than its heavy guns counterpart, which I will be discussing now. Number 7, the harpoon gun. While this is a worst guns list, I'd still say that like the railway rifle and shotguns in Fallout 4, the harpoon gun isn't 100% awful. I think the best way to describe the harpoon gun is that it is a mix between a railway rifle and a sniper rifle for heavy gunner perk users. Not to compliment Bethesda or anything, but I actually think this is a pretty great idea in some respects. Most heavy weapons have ridiculously heavy ammo, and you don't really get very many hyper long-range weapons as a heavy guns user. It's also nice that you can upgrade the harpoons to deal bleed damage, and that you can retrieve harpoons from the corpses of enemies. At the same time, consider this for a moment. The Gauss rifle is one of, if not the best sniper weapons in the game because it deals an additional 42 damage per shot after being upgraded. It has a magazine size of 20 after upgrade, and it can be suppressed. The harpoon gun has inferior damage, a magazine size of 1, and can't be suppressed at all. Honestly, I think if this thing dealt a little bit more damage and had a suppressor, it would be totally worth it. Number 6. The Fatman, Merv, and Nuke launchers. So I apologize if I just triggered someone with this entry, but the Fatman is on here because of its abysmal ammo weight. The standard Fatman, Merv launcher, and even the Nuke launcher all have nukes that weigh 12 pounds each. The only real saving grace is that Nuke weigh the same as mini nukes and deal about 50% more damage per shot, so I guess that is something. Now, like I said with some of the earlier entries, the Fatman isn't necessarily a bad gun for normal mode, and I've also generally found that a shot from the Fatman is usually an instant kill in survival mode, especially once you've invested in the heavy guns and the demolition expert perks, and you've got the corresponding bobbleheads. The Fatman is capable of insane damage. I just wish that the ammo was a lot lighter. Number 5, the Broadsider. While the ammo weight for the Broadsider is much better than some of the other vanilla game heavy weapons, 1 pound per cannonball is pretty ridiculous in my opinion, especially considering that each cannonball deals only 108 damage. So you're dealing only 108 damage per pound of ammo fired. The Broadsider is a shame, honestly, because it can have a magazine capacity of 3, and there are customizations that make the gun lighter. Plus, as far as purchasing cannonballs goes, they are much cheaper than either missiles or mini nukes, and function in a similar way. As an aside, the Broadsider seems like it was a gun that got kinda nerfed before Fallout 4 released. For those of you that don't know, at one time there were going to be a couple different versions of the Broadsider, 2 of which had superior damage and a bigger blast radius than the current Broadsider, and the third one was going to be a nuclear version of the Broadsider. And really the best way to describe the nuclear Broadsider is that it's a poor man's Fatman launcher that deals about 50% less damage. So you can get 3 shots and you wouldn't have to reload. That's pretty nice. Ultimately, I wish that the Broadsider was better because I do like the gun. Number 4, the lever-action rifle. So damage-wise, the lever-action rifle is actually really good. I would say that if you're playing in normal mode and you don't have to worry about ammo weight at all, you may actually want to consider the lever-action rifle. At the same time, the lever-action rifle has some problems. As of September 28, 2016, the lever-action rifle's reload animation is still glitched. Whether you fire all 5 shots, 4 shots, 3 shots, 2 shots, or even just 1 shot, you will have to reload 5 bullets into the gun every single time. So if you're a compulsive reloader like I am, this will start to really irritate you after a while. And another problem with the lever-action rifle is ammo weight and ammo efficiency. While 45 by 70 ammo is more ammo efficient than 50 caliber rounds, and they weigh less, only 14 bullets per pound is still pretty bad and is well below average. And that average is going to be about 25 bullets to 35 bullets per pound. For the sake of comparison, the handmade rifle from the Nuka World DLC at its maximum deals 68 damage per shot, and you can carry 28 to 29 bullets per pound. The lever-action rifle deals more damage at 78 damage per shot, but you can only carry 14 to 15 bullets per pound. Not to mention that the handmade rifle can also have a magazine size of 75, assuming you can craft all of the upgrades that are available for it. I'd recommend that you skip the lever-action rifle and just use something else. Number 3, the 50 caliber hunting and pipe bolt action rifles. So, I know a long time ago I said the hunting rifle sucks. Well, it still kind of does. Now, I suppose to be fair, the 308 and 38 caliber versions are decent. However, the 50 caliber versions of both the hunting and pipe bolt action rifles and pistols are an absolute disgrace, both in terms of damage and in terms of ammo weight. To put things in perspective, under ideal circumstances, the 50 caliber hunting rifle deals 64 damage per shot, and you can carry about 13 bullets per pound. Compare this to the 308 Comet rifle, which deals 57 damage per shot, has a much higher fire rate, and you can carry 24 308 bullets in 1 pound. With 50 caliber weapons, you're only dealing 7 damage more on the high end, and you can carry just above half the ammunition. Avoid 50 caliber like the plague. It's a waste of money to purchase, and it's not particularly great for combat either. Number 2, the missile launcher. So like the Fat Man and Broadsider, the missile launcher has exceptionally bad ammo weight. This isn't even considering that the missile launcher kinda sucks as a weapon too. The first problem that you'll notice is that missiles in general are extremely heavy. At 7 pounds per missile, provided you have the quad rocket barrel, one magazine of missiles alone weighs 28 pounds. And unless you're using power armor, you're not going to be able to carry more than 8 missiles at a time. The second problem is that the missile launcher's base damage is pretty low and can't be upgraded by either tweaking the rockets themselves or by modifying a receiver on the weapon. While you can boost the damage via skills and certain bobbleheads, you'll find that the Fat Man is more reliable and will deal a lot more damage. The only thing that the missile launcher has going for it is the targeting computer, which I will admit is pretty awesome. Do your carry weight a favor and sell this piece of crap. And finally, number 1, the 45 caliber submachine gun. I hate this gun with passion. Now, I know some people that are watching this video like the spray and pray, but the submachine gun itself is awful. I would go as far to say that the only thing that you guys really like about the spray and pray is that explosive effect, which I will admit is quite nice, but you can occasionally get it to appear on different weapons. This gun only uses 45 caliber ammo, which isn't cheap, and the fully upgraded submachine version is on par with a fully upgraded automatic pipe pistol or rifle in terms of damage and firing. And just to reiterate that for emphasis, the fully upgraded automatic pipe pistol or rifle deals the same amount of damage as the submachine gun. Assuming that you know that now, why on earth would you use the submachine gun? Ammo weighs twice as much and costs 3 times as much as 38 caliber. The only thing that you're going to be losing is a 100 bullet mag size, which isn't even going to matter once you've got quick eject magazines anyway. if there is one truly awful weapon in Fallout 4, it is the submachine. Alright guys, that's going to pretty much wrap up this particular video. If you like this video, please be sure to leave a like. And you know, I did one of those things last time. I guess let's see if we can get to 800 likes again. Like this video, leave a like. No big deal if we don't get 800 likes. I'll be here tomorrow or at some point. My uploading schedule is a little bit disjointed. But again guys, take care, and I'll see y'all next time. You're watching Final Akuma Gaming. So whether you play normal or survival mode, one weapon type that largely remains consistent is melee weapons. You don't have to worry about ammo weight, damage per pound of ammo, or anything like that. While melee weapons lack the conventional range that most firearms have, melee weapons are capable of dealing a lot of damage with a simple swing. Now today, I'm going to be discussing both unarmed and traditional melee weapons for Fallout 4. I've mostly broken this list down based on raw damage output, melee attack speed, and the quality of the unique variants that each weapon type has to offer. Unlike last time, I'm also going to be including DLC weapons that got added from either Automatron, Far Harbor, or Nuka World, in addition to what is already available from the vanilla game. So, without further ado, these will be the top 7 best melee weapons in Fallout 4, including DLC and survival mode, starting now. Number 7, the Pipe Wrench. So originally, I would have told you that I thought that the Security Baton with the Stun Pack mod was the best blunt edge, medium attack speed melee weapon in Fallout 4. However, what you'll ultimately find is that the bulk of the Security Baton's damage is from energy damage, and you'll also find that there aren't really any good, unique variants of the Security Baton either. That said, you can get some legendary variants, but I think you're going to prefer the Pipe Wrench. As far as a blunt, medium attack speed melee weapon goes, the Pipe Wrench is the best in its class. You can also install mods that allow for armor penetration, making the Pipe Wrench quite useful up against armored enemies like Mirelurks or the Brother of Steel too. What's also nice is that you can get the Big Jim Pipe Wrench within the first hour or two of Fallout 4 by simply going into the drainage pipe at Walden Farm. The Big Jim has the kneecapper effect, which you will find to be extremely useful up against most creatures. Otherwise, while I would say this is a pretty good melee weapon, if you want the best damage for a medium attack speed melee weapon, go with the next entry on this list. Number 6, the Chinese Officer Sword. Even after all of the DLC for Fallout 4 has come out, the Chinese Officer Sword is still the strongest medium attack speed standard melee weapon in Fallout 4. What's also nice is that it can be upgraded with both a serrated edge that adds a little bit of bleed damage, and an electrified attack which adds additional energy damage to your attacks. While the Shish Kebab, Machete, and the Revolutionary Sword are good, clearly the Chinese Officer Sword comes out on top. Now, the only thing that you'll find that this weapon lacks is good armor penetration, which might be a problem up against certain types of enemies, but again, that's why you carry multiple melee weapons for different purposes. Now, the Chinese Officer Sword does have some unique variants, and they're sort of hit or miss. General Chao's Revenge has the Troubleshooter's effect, which deals 50% more damage to robots, and can be purchased at the Drumlin Diner near Concord. However, there is also the Sword of Wonders that was added with the Nuka World DLC, and it's alright, and it has the Penetrating effect, which ignores an enemy's resistances by 30%. Now, to avoid spoilers, I won't go into too much detail on where the Sword of Wonders is located, but I think it's something that you should seek out if you're interested in the Chinese Officer Sword. Number 5, the Power Fist. So the Power Fist is considered by the game to be an unarmed weapon, but for our purposes, I'll ultimately say that it is a melee weapon. Like all other unarmed weapons, the Power Fist has a medium attack speed and can't be equipped while the player has power armor on. So you will have to have a nice set of non-power armor pieces to be able to even use the Power Fist. In my personal opinion, this is the only weapon you should use if you're playing an unarmed melee build. I would say your best bet for one of these is the Furious Power Fist that you get on the Swan in downtown Boston. As the name implies, the Furious Power Fist has the Furious Legendary weapon effect, which allows you to deal more damage on each consecutive hit. Theoretically, the Power Fist would become stronger than some of the other melee weapons on this list, thanks to the Furious Legendary Weapon effect. If you ask me, though, the inability to use this weapon with power armor really hurts it. Power armor provides additional protection in survival mode and can save your life up against certain types of weapons like guns or anything else that ties you to death. If you're not playing survival mode though, the Power Fist is a great weapon to try and play through the game with, and I've done it myself and I've quite enjoyed it. Number 4, the Disciple Blade. So this was a new weapon that got added to Fallout 4 Unique World DLC, and it's replacing the combat knife as the best fast attack melee weapon in You're getting roughly double the damage with this weapon, however also getting significantly higher upgrade requirements. Unlike the combat knife, which just requires the blacksmith perk to upgrade, the Disciple Blade requires both the big leap and blacksmith perk. However, if you ask me though, the trade-off is worth it, since you should have the big leaps perk anyway if you're using the melee perk. Like Hickman's Blade for the combat knife, the Disciple Blade has the throat slice, which also has the wounding legendary weapon effect. The wounding effect might just be one of the most powerful legendary weapon effects in Fallout 4, thanks to its ability to stack for even higher damage of the combat. Like the Chinese Officer Sword, and sort of like the Power Fist, the Disciple Blade is kind of limited though. The Disciple Blade doesn't have armor penetration, which makes it terrible up against Mirelurks, and while you can use the Disciple Blade in power armor, you won't be able to take advantage of your fast attack speed unless you have unequipped your power armor. So you may want to use something else for survival mode, unless you're playing a speed build, or if you're already using no power armor. Number 3.
No matter who you are, there are times it can be tough to be yourself when you have severe asthma. Rivers can pop up out of nowhere and lead to an asthma. But no matter what type of severe asthma you have, the fire can help you. What's all this? You. Fire is an add-on treatment with polymetric that can help you have fewer attacks, breathe better, and relieve your asthma symptoms. So you can be you, whoever you are. If fire is not a rescue medication, don't use fire if you're allergic to it. Allergic reactions may occur, which can be serious. Rash or eye allergy can happen. Don't take your asthma treatment unless your doctor tells you to. Tell your doctor if you have a parasitic infection or your asthma worsens. Avoid live vaccines. Help you control your asthma. But fire can help you. No matter who you are, ask your asthma specialist about fire.
Not this time!
The Ripper. So, the Ripper is pretty crazy. While the raw damage output is fairly low, provided that you have the extended upgrade, you can deal bleed damage, which does improve this weapon's DPS. The only other weapon that has a very fast attack speed is the Mr. Handy upgrade, which doesn't have the ability to inflict bleed damage, but has better range. However, I think what you'll ultimately find is that between the two, the Ripper still comes out on top in terms of damage and overall DPS. While the Ripper has the Harvester from the Far Harbor DLC, which does have a staggering legendary weapon effect, my thinking is that your best bet will be to randomly find the Ripper with the wounding legendary weapon effect. If you manage to do that, you're going to have one of the best melee weapons in Fallout 4 at that point, especially once you've got the extended mod for the Ripper. At the same time, the only thing that really hurts the Ripper is the lack of a truly exceptional unique variant. The Harvester is okay with its staggering effect, however, I think the Reckoning isn't even really worth the trouble to acquire tonight. But you may feel differently. Just to reiterate though, the Wounding Ripper is probably going to be your best. Number 2, the Rocket Bat. So I'm sure many of you are already familiar with Fallout 4's vanilla baseball bat. It was a pretty good early melee weapon that had a slow attack speed and had some pretty good unique variants. However, after the Nuka World DLC came out, the baseball bat can be converted into a rocket bat, complete with puncturing spikes and a stun pack. It's pretty ridiculous and pretty awesome at the same time. While the rocket bat isn't capable of the highest raw damage output for a melee weapon in Fallout 4, I felt that I should include it because it's going to be your go-to weapon for armor penetration now. Since it's just a weapon customization, you should be able to perform this mod on other unique variants like the Fence Buster from Far Harbor, Toad's Shiny Slugger from the Nuka World DLC, or even the Rockville Slugger and 27-bit World Series Baseball Bat from Fallout 4's Vanilla game. Another thing that's nice is that the rocket upgrades don't require that you start the DLC in order to unlock them. In order to get the yellow material upgrade, you will need to interact with the pack from Nuka World. Without these colored upgrades, you can't maximize the damage potential of your baseball bat. So I do recommend that you play through Nuka World if you're a melee user to get that upgrade. Number 1, the Rocket Sledgehammer. In terms of raw damage output, the Sledgehammer is now the most powerful melee weapon in Fallout 4, even surpassing the previous champion, which was the Super Sledge. Like the Rocket Bat, the Rocket Sledgehammer got added with Fallout 4's Nuka World DLC, and despite its ridiculously high weight, this weapon hits like a truck. I didn't mention this earlier, but I recommend that you can use this weapon, play in third person with power armor to get the quickest attack speed possible. I don't know why this works, but it does. That said, the Sledgehammer in general does have some problems. Unlike the Super Sledge, there are no unique variants of the Sledgehammer. Unlike the Rocket Bat, the Sledgehammer doesn't have armor penetration, so you may have problems with fighting certain enemies that have like a lot of armor, so like Firelurks, or even some local steel soldiers. Instead of armor penetration though, you do get bleed damage, which I will admit is a nice feature, even if you will be killing enemies in 2 to 3 swings with this weapon. It's a shame that the Rocket Sledgehammer doesn't have any official unique variants. While you can get legendary variants of the Sledgehammer to spawn, your chances of getting something like a Furious or Wounded Sledgehammer are pretty low. I would just say, if you see any legendary Sledgehammers that you like, be sure to store them for use in the future. Alright guys, that's going to pretty much wrap up this particular video. If you like this video, please be sure to leave a like, and let me know, what do you think is the best melee weapon in Fallout 4?
Look alive.
Leave a comment below. Otherwise, thanks again, take care, and I'll see you all next time. You're watching Vinyl Akuma Gaming. What's up guys, back with another Fallout 4 countdown video, and today I wanted to go over some of what I think are your best options for guns and weapons in Fallout 4's early game stages. Now, this list will combine practical non-unique weapons along with some exceptionally unique weapons that can be obtained very early on. Before we start, I've picked the following weapons based on the following criteria. Number 1. All these weapons must be obtained in what I would consider to be early game areas. This excludes areas like the Glowing Sea, Southwest Boston, Southeast Boston, and Northeast Boston. And the furthest east that you can go would be places like Old North Church and Pickman's Gallery. However, no further south than that, and no further north than Bunker Hill. Number 2. None of these weapons can require any DLC. DLC areas aren't early game areas and are usually visited much later on in the playthrough. Number 3. All of these weapons must be either quest rewards or picked up in specific locations. None of these weapons can be purchased from vendors, the idea being that you may not have the necessary bottle caps that early on. Number 4. All of these weapons must be obtainable before you encounter Kellogg at Fort Hagen, and preferably before the player reaches level 15. And the 5th and final criteria, you shouldn't need a master hacking or lockpicking skill in order to get these weapons. And this would eliminate something like the Cryolator, which can be obtained in Vault 111, which is a early game area. And to pick master locks, you're going to need to be at least level 18. So with all of that out of the way, let's go ahead and we'll start with our first weapon. Number 10, the Laser Musket. I'll admit that this was one that I initially hesitated to include. At the same time, the laser musket is going to be a better option for energy weapons that use fusion cell ammo until you're able to upgrade your laser rifles and pistols. This is because the standard laser musket has a higher base damage than the standard non-upgraded laser pistol or rifle. Now, there's a good chance that you probably have found this gun already, as you will get one if you go to Concord and complete some of the quests there. Originally, I decided not to include this weapon, but then I thought about it, and a lot of the crafting materials that are used to upgrade laser weapons are fairly uncommon or rare. For example, resources like circuitry, crystal, plastic, fiberglass, gold, and other materials are going to be fairly uncommon for quite a while. And I would also say that even if you can find some of these materials, you're better off saving them for the construction of certain settlement objects like the radio beacon. So, yes, while this isn't a great weapon later on in the game, my advice is to keep using the laser musket and just keep an eye out for random laser weapons that have better capacitors and better barrels. Once you find something like that, feel free to ditch the laser musket. Number 9, the hunting rifle. So the hunting rifle is a pretty decent gun to acquire and use really early on when you don't have the necessary components to upgrade other weapons. For example, maybe you don't have the supplies to upgrade one of the weapons I'm going to mention later on, and in that case, you should use the hunting rifle. Now, to get this particular weapon really early on, you can go to Walden Pond and enter the sewer. As you travel through and enter the very first area with the 2 raiders, kill them and check the duffel bag, and there should be a variant of the hunting rifle on top of it. This should be the closest location to Sanctuary that you are guaranteed to acquire a hunting rifle. Now, this gun is going to be really good very early on in the game. Compared to most pipe weapons and the 10mm pistol that you start with, the hunting rifle is capable of dealing much more damage. For players that intend on using the rifleman perk, the hunting rifle will always be superior to the pipe bolt action rifle. Now, for pistol users, on the other hand, this isn't the case because the pipe bolt action rifle can be converted into a pistol, where the hunting rifle cannot. While I sort of alluded to it earlier, this gun is really only good until you can get your hands on the combat rifle, and a lot of that is because it has a higher upgrade requirement than the combat rifle to achieve similar amounts of damage. Plus, 308 caliber ammo is more expensive than 45 ammo, and the base damage you're dealing with a combat rifle isn't that much lower. I'd recommend that you use this gun for some of the really early encounters, like at Concord or maybe on your way to Diamond City. After that, your mileage is going to vary based on your perk investment, but what I can say is that the hunting rifle becomes worse as the game progresses. Number 8, the Big Jim. So the Big Jim is a pretty nice, unique pipe wrench that's going to be a nice melee weapon for killing most creatures and animals very early on. To acquire it, you simply have to go to Walden Pond and enter the sewer pipe like you did for the hunting rifle. From there, you will need to kill 4 of the named raiders inside. In the last room, go up the small flight of stairs, turn right, and on one of the shelves to your left, you will see the Big Jim. Now, as a melee weapon, the pipe wrench itself is fairly average. It's not incredible or anything, and is going to be surpassed by other melee weapons like the Chinese officer sword in terms of damage once you upgrade. What makes the Big Jim great, though, is the legendary weapon effect that it bears. The kneecapper effect grants the player a 20% chance to cripple an enemy's leg. And while this effect doesn't work quite as well up against humans because they can easily heal with stim packs, most creatures and animals don't have ways to allow them to quickly heal their limbs. And because of that, you can quickly impair these enemies, and they won't be able to get up and fight back. The kneecapper effect in particular is really good up against Yao Guai, Deathclaws, Behemoths, and other similar enemy types. Now, you may find that the kneecapper effect in general is going to be a little bit better on guns, and that's simply because the ability to take out an enemy's legs remotely is a little more appealing than doing so up close with melee, especially with the Deathclaw because it can pick you up and throw you around. But even still, I think this is going to be a nice melee weapon very early on, and it's pretty easy to get, so I think I can recommend it. Number 7, the 44 pistol. Now, for veterans of Fallout 4, this one won't be too much of a surprise. It's possible to obtain a 44 pistol as soon as you leave Sanctuary. As you walk across the bridge leaving the area, take a left at the Minutemen statue. Walk along the shore, eliminating any enemies you encounter. Go past the docks, and you should come across a circuit breaker. Flip it on, and follow the wire up the rocks until you come across a skeleton. And right next to the skeleton, there should be both a 44 pistol as well as a couple 44 caliber bullets. Now, the 44 caliber pistol is an awesome weapon this early on in Fallout 4. It's going to be at least 3 to 4 times stronger than the pipe pistol, and you can get it to almost 5 times stronger, provided that you upgrade it to the hardened receiver. In fact, you can perform most of the upgrades that you want to the 44 pistol without any investment in the gun nut perk. Now, that said, to maximize the damage potential for later on, it's strongly advised that you have the gun nut perk at rank 4 as soon as you are able to. Now, one of the problems with this weapon is that 44 caliber bullets are fairly rare and quite expensive to buy. And this issue is compounded somewhat considering that you can easily miss with this particular weapon if you're not careful. For that reason,